A huge 1 year's worth of subscriptions was donated on Patreon by Grindstone Coffee and Donuts, and I'm very thankful for the dedication to the channel. Ultima is a colourless ramp deck where we want to make big splashy plays. Pretty typical of colourless decks, but we are not relying on an Eldrazi in the command zone at least. He has each of our lands tap for an additional colourless, and then when he swings in he spreads the blight, making one of our opponent's lands lose all abilities and only tap for a colourless, so switching off Gaia's Cradles, Cabal Coffers, Nykthos, Field of the Dead, all these types of scary lands that we tend to go up against. So let's go over the boring ramp stuff first. A lot of stuff that isn't too noteworthy here, things that you would expect to see in a lot of decks, especially colourless ones. We can search for basics now in colourless lists, now that we've got wastes, so Wayfarer's Bauble not as useless. Burnished Heart, the same thing, we can land ramp with that. And then Solemn Simulacrum, good in a lot of decks to this day. Scampering Surveyor is a little bit of a piece of redundancy for Solemn Simulacrum, costs the same, and can search out a basic or a cave. Not sure if we have any caves in here or not. Then all the lands can be untapped with something like Sword of Feast and Famine, so that we can tap down all the lands for double mana again, and make great use of this with Flash in the first game, so if you haven't seen that then you must go and watch it. The Iron Crag over here is just a 2 mana rock, but it can turn into a 3/3 buff as an equipment if we want to turn it into more of a Voltron game down the line. Candelabra of Tornos, probably one that you're going to have to proxy because I'm guessing with a nearly $2,000 price point it's on the reserved list, but it's nowhere near that on Magic Online, so if you play Magic Online you can easily afford this. It's probably like 50 cents or something. X, untap X different lands, so if you've got 6 lands you tap them down for 12 mana. Use 6 of that to untap them all and you've just netted yourself a free 6 mana. This assumes your commander's in play, of course. And then with Basalt Monolith, I should point out, our commander only cares about lands, so it will only make this tap for 3 mana. It untaps itself for 3 mana, you can just do that infinitely, doesn't do anything in this deck. But it is handy to know because with Forsaken Monument, unlike our commander, this cares about permanents tapping for colourless mana and gives us an additional colourless, so that means Basalt Monolith taps for 4 mana and untaps for 3 still, netting your mana every single time you do it. That is infinite colourless mana for us, so we don't exactly struggle on mana in this list, but it is worth noting. There's removal tied to some of the rocks as well, so Unstable Obelisk. Most of the time we'll just tap for a colourless, but for 7 and a tap with a sacrifice destroys any permanent. The Might Stone and Weak Stone enters, and it can either draw us 2 cards or give -5/-5 to a creature, which will more than likely kill it off. So like I said, nothing too fancy in this section. Some cards double up as ramp and card draw, some double up as ramp and removal, but for the most part it's pretty straightforward. Slam all these into play, make a bunch of mana, and go on to do crazy stuff. So what crazy stuff are we looking to do? Well, we do have the, what is it called, Roaming Throne in the list for double triggers, but Echoes of Eternity is even better. Doubles the triggered abilities of colourless spells and other colourless permanents, and then when you cast colourless spells, which is everyone in the deck obviously, you get another copy of that as well. So sometimes you have to take a turn off to get this into play, which is a bit of a gamble. If your opponents remove it, then you've kind of wasted your turn, but if this lands then you're likely going to take over the game very, very quickly. God Pharaoh statue, I think the only stacks piece in the list. Making all of your opponent's spells cost 2 more is absolutely crippling. Sire of 7 Deaths, there are Eldrazi in the list because it's colourless, you pretty much have to run them. But this thing has a bunch of keywords and is going to threaten your opponent's life total all by itself. Ugin, Eye of the Storms, I am yet to play with. I'm very much looking forward to landing this thing one day. Whenever you cast a colourless spell into it, exile a target permanent that is 1 or more colours. So as far as I'm concerned, it could have no other text on it other than that, and I'd be more than happy to run this, but you also get card draw and ramp and some other stuff no one cares about in it. Blightsteel Colossus, been one-shotting opponents for the past 10-15 years, however long it is. And Rise of the Eldrazi, a newer card that can't be countered. Destroy a permanent, draw 4 and take an extra turn. So it's very, very expensive, but playing this alone can help get you back into the game. Speaking of card draw, we'll go on to that here. Mystic Forge. We can cast any of our spells from the top of our library. Noteworthy that we can't play lands with this, unfortunately, but a pocket of spells on top and we'll be able to get them all straight onto the battlefield. Ether Spark, there is a little bit of a Voltron sub-theme to the list, so this can pile plus counters onto Ultima, but if we have to resort to just drawing cards and adding mana with this, then that's hardly the end of the world either. The One Ring is the One Ring. Chimil keeps our spells from being countered and gives us a free spell at the beginning of our end step. Then we've got the 2 Kozileks that give us some card advantage, so only 4 from Kozilek, although it does have Annihilator written on it. And the Great Distortion is sometimes going to be a tutor target so that we can refill our hand by casting this alone. Not too worried about the counterspell side of it, but I don't suppose it hurts. And then there's some more flashy stuff in the removal section as well. A lot of the typical colourless stuff that you would expect to see. Duplicate, exile stuff, Ugin the Ineffable can destroy something. It also makes all of our spells cost 2 less, so that's really, really good as part of the ramp package as well. All his dust destroys everything apart from our permanents. Ulamog exiles a couple of things and then wipes out your opponent's library pretty quickly. Cityscape Leveler can destroy any of your opponent's stuff, and it's not too likely that they'll make that much use of the Power Stone tokens. The Spirit Dragon is a Wrath as well, and it's exile, which is really good. I've had the limit break on this multiple times, -10. Gain 7, draw 7, and put 7 permanents into play. And more board control with Portal to Phyrexia. Each opponent has to sacrifice 3 creatures, and then you can reanimate stuff during your upkeep. So if someone has managed to destroy your Eldrazi or whatever, then can soon have them reanimated again. And a new one from the Final Fantasy set is Bahamut. I'm assuming that this is pretty much going to enter and destroy a couple of permanents over the course of a couple of turns, but if we do manage to get up to Mega Flare, then this creature deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. So with the massive creatures and permanents that we're going to have in play, yeah, that is going to mount up very quickly by the time we're up to 9 mana, and we're likely going to take out every opponent if we manage to hit the Mega Flare. Some quick miscellaneous stuff that I couldn't fit anywhere else. The Rothlthopter and the Cicada allow us to play at flash speed, and don't underestimate cards like this that allow you to play at flash speed. They are well worth the inclusion. You can play around the fact that your opponents might have board wipes and all sorts. Obtrusive Archaic can double the triggers, so we can get double the exile on stuff, double the destruction, double the blight counters for our commander, and it can even do that after it's swung in combat with its vigilance, and await the activation during an opponent's turn. Roaming Throne we mentioned previously, along with that other copying enchantment, whatever it was called. Wandering Archaic, speaking of copying, we can copy our opponent's instants and sorceries if we like. They're unlikely to pay the 2 in my experience, so you can get free Swords to Plowshares and stuff like that. Double up on your opponent's removal, and it's less likely that they're going to point it at your stuff because they can also have it pointed back at them with this. Anyway, I think you get the idea with this. Ramp like crazy and dump ginormous threats into play, completely dominate the game. Let's see if we can do just that. Versus Crick, Judith, and Denetha. If I had a 2-mana rock here, I'd probably keep this. I'm hoping that we draw into the new Ugin, because that's half the reason I built this deck. Have to mulligan this though. And into multiple lands, ramp a little bit with the Everflowing Chalice, hopefully land our commander so that we can make use of the Candelabra and actually make some mana. It's not a great hand, but if things go our way, we should be able to make something with it. Electrostatic Field for Judith, triggers on instants and sorceries. And he's got an Everflowing Chalice of his own, the mono black player. A 4th land for us is good, so that, along with Everflowing Chalice, means that we should be able to get down our commander. And I drew into Skittering Cicada at some point as well, so we'll be able to play at flash speed, which makes things even better. Wishclaw Talisman for Crick, and activates that straight away. Hands it over to us, so I assume we're just going to go clockwise with it. A Wastes for us, and so I'm just wondering now, we could hold up Skittering Cicada and a Mana Vault, and that means next turn we've got 3 from Vault, 4, 5, and then 4 mana after that. Or maybe we should just go for some card draw with the Talisman. Or maybe it's best just going for Sol Ring, seeing as how we're going to be able to untap that. Don't know if it's worth the extra mana for a Mana Vault. Could be an idea to get into some card draw as well. Rise of the Eldrazi, Kozilek, something like that. I'll just go for the Sol Ring and hand it over to the white player. So we have to go for the Sol Ring now. This way we're able to go Skittering Cicada into the Candelabra. Activates Wishclaw Talisman as well. Noteworthy that the black player tutored and didn't play a land on turn 3. Gets into a Sol Ring of his own. Spectre's Shriek pointed at the Rakdos player, so they'll have to exile a card from hand here. Show us a Tormenting Voice, Seismic Wave, Mithril Coat, Imp's Mischief is good to know about, and a land. Decides on exiling the Mithril Coat. So at the end step, we'll go for our Insect. Priority being held up by Denetha, so might have removal for us. Still hasn't made a land over here, so I don't know why he didn't just tutor for an Urborg or whatever. And we draw Sword of Vengeance, so +2 to power, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample and Haste. No reason to do anything at sorcery speed here, so we'll just pass the turn at this. Might be able to encourage the Rakdos or the black player to use some spot removal, and Akroma's Memorial might help us with that. Denetha enters. First Strike, Vigilance and Lifelink does have Swiftfoot Boots available, and can put a big equipment into play here. Of course it is Argentum Armour. Probably comes after our Sol Ring, maybe the Candelabra. No, surprisingly the Rakdos player continues to get bullied, and goes after the black mana of the Crick player. Again, I said it in a previous recording, I've asked for bracket 3 here, but this is Magic Online. Blocks with the Electrostatic Field, so maybe there'll be a board wipe from this guy. A Sign in Blood for Judith, and Crick decides to scoop. Noteworthy that Imp's Mischief might be held up against us now. I'm just hoping that it isn't. He might try and draw into answers with Tormenting Voice. Looks as though that's what he's doing. Decided to discard the Seismic Wave to that. So let's go for Ultima at instant speed. Make sure to tap our rocks into that because it only doubles up lands. And then we can tap these for 4 mana, untap 4 lands with the Candelabra. And that will allow us into Akroma's Memorial. Unfortunately making this a 14/14, but can't do any damage with it. A Null Elemental Blast we draw into, goes after multicoloured spells and permanents. I think I definitely want to keep Denetha from swinging in towards us, so let's go for Ulamog right now, especially when it's going to have haste. We can tap down lands first, so that floats 10 mana, and then we can put 5 into untapping them, we might as well. Not going to have any cards in hand anyway, for the most part. So we've got 8 mana remaining. Skittering Cicada gets buffed. Ulamog is going to get rid of the Argentum Armour. And do we go after the Sol Ring as well? I'd obviously blow up Denetha if we could, although maybe that wouldn't be the best idea. Might have Flicker and stuff. Whatever, we'll just take his mana. And then it's 6 mana for this, and we can still hold up the Elemental Blast. Or we could draw cards with this. Yeah, let's go for the sword. And just throw that on the commander. The Cicada currently a 15/15. And Ulamog as well. So this is going to be 31 points of damage towards the white player, who's already gained a decent chunk of life so far. Going to take the abilities off the Mistveil Plains, as well as exile the top 20 cards of his library. Good to see Hammer of Nazarn go away. Cloud's really good as well. Sigarda's Aid, we've hit some good stuff there. A Tutor in Steel Shaper's Gift. I've got him from 50 down to 19, but not tutoring for card draw might be our undoing here. We can draw some cards with a couple of lands at least. Has another tutor regardless though. A Stoneforge Mystic. Doesn't have any free equips at the moment at least. Has fewer equipment he can draw into as well. Feast and Famine and Fire and Ice are in the exile zone. 4/4 goes into the right, doesn't want to swing into our Vigilance. Decided to tutor at Excalibur. Gets a discount from the total mana value of your historic permanents, so that's 5, 6 and 7. Sanguine Bond we don't like the look of. I'm hoping that we draw into something that can buff up the Cicada so we can one-shot this guy. Really don't want to give him another turn. He is up to 23 again. Alright, a Rogue's Passage for us. So let's go for drawing with the War Room first of all. And it gets us into another land. So we'll float some mana and then go for the loot with the Gaia. This does affect each player, so hopefully we're not getting our opponents into anything. Should have waited on the land drop apparently. A Bonder's Enclave as well. Discard the Planar Nexus. And then we've got 6 mana to put into the Candelabra. We have 6 lands to untap as well. So we'll try again with War Room. And there we see a Wayfarer's Bauble. So it seems as though our luck has run out. We've got 16, 17, 18 only. We needed to draw into a 5-drop really. Might as well go for the loot again. Now we draw into a duplicate, of course. Discard the Elemental Blast. Kind of needlessly drawn them into extra cards here, but we did want to get closer to something like duplicate. But we're handing an extra turn over to our opponents here. Swing everything into the left again, so this guy's going to go down to 43 cards left in his library. Might as well start switching off lands over here. So we've got to be down to 4. But like I said, he does get another turn. And he's going to potentially gain life off the Excalibur. And extra planar lens is going to generate him a lot more mana. Cheats an equipment into play, decides on the Genji Glove from Final Fantasy, so yeah, I haven't seen this one played yet. Double strike and an extra combat, and that is going on to the commander, gaining as much life as he can, and swings into the right. So it will be 8 life gained per attack here. So we'll go back up to 20, but as long as we keep our creatures in play, we just throw out a duplicate and buff this up enough to actually get our damage through. Denether looking like a very capable deck here. Might just be that the Rakdos player combos off on us though with a Sanguine Bond in play, especially with all the card draw we just gave him. Eager for the mana on Blood Crypt because he shocked it in. Cabal Ritual for even more mana, so maybe it's some kind of big X spell. Decides on Judith. He's at 20 commander damage to the Denether. And there's Tectonic Hazard, 1 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. Here's where the protection from red comes into play. Will gain himself some life from it at least. But he actually can't deal damage to things with protection from red, which is relevant with the lifelink. A Flawless Maneuver. So Denether going to gain Indestructible on his stuff. Still gains 4 life, so Sanguine Bond has a player lose that much, and we've just got these two swinging haymakers back and forth at each other. And there is a Blasphemous Sack. That's still going to gain him some life. These are indestructible, but do not have protection from red, so they'll still take the damage. But obviously the creatures stick around with indestructible, so it's up to 58 life. Does kill off his own Judith in the process though, that's the problem with this commander. It really wants indestructible. Oh, but he's just gained 39 life exactly, and you'll never guess how much life we're on. So that's a funny way to go down. He has to get rid of us here, surely. I mean, he just goes down to commander damage next turn anyway, so yeah, that's this game over. So apparently holding on to the counterspell for the Judith would have been the play there, but I really wanted to guarantee getting rid of Denether next turn with the duplicate into the Cicada to buff it enough. And obviously the Bonder's Enclave is more card draw for us while our hand's empty. Playing Warhound for some reason. And then passes the turn over. Okay, so is he just playing with his food here? Oh, I see, there was a deal struck. Okay. This is where there's a benefit of chatting in, well, the chat on Magic Online. And Animate Dead onto the Black Waltz number 3. And just passing at that, we know the one card in his hand is just a counterspell. Stoneforge Mystic can be activated at instant speed to cheat in an equipment. And finally shows us that Excalibur equips it onto the Denether. So it's double strike, haste, hexproof, first strike, vigilance and lifelink, no trample. Swings in with everything, including the Stoneforge, meaning he doesn't have an equipment he wants to cheat in. Of course, having the extra combat with the Genji Glove means he just blocks the Denether and then swings in again with Denether for lethal. So in response to the block, Village Rites will sacrifice the Wizard, draw 2 cards, but didn't draw into anything seemingly, so just swings in again for lethal. And there we are, Denether, proving why you don't quit, because you never know what's going to happen. We were looking very, very commanding there, but our opponent had exactly enough on us. So that was an awesome game. Hopefully you all enjoyed it as well. Massive thank you to the patrons for their financial support of the channel. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.